Amanda Blake names the 6 gay actors she knows who died of AIDS in secret. Amanda Blake was born Beverly Louise Neal on February 20, 1929 in Buffalo, New York. Amanda Blake was raised in Claremont, California after her family moved from Buffalo. Even as a young girl, she exhibited a natural flair for the dramatic arts, performing in school plays and showing early signs of the talent that would later bring her fame. After graduating from high school, she briefly attended Pomona College, but soon left to pursue a full-time career in acting, driven by a deep passion for the craft and an independent spirit. Before she entered the acting world, Blake worked as a telephone operator for the phone company, an experience she later credited with building her confidence and teaching her how to handle people from all walks of life. But her true calling remained on the stage and screen. Her classic beauty, husky voice, and vibrant personality soon opened doors in Hollywood, where she landed early roles in a string of 1950s films, including Stars in My Crown, 1950, Smuggler's Gold, 1951, and Miss Robin Crusoe, 1954. Amanda Blake's greatest legacy was forged when she was cast as Miss Kitty Russell, the fiery yet compassionate saloon owner and love interest of Marshal Matt Dillon in the legendary television series Gunsmoke. The show debuted in 1955 and would go on to become one of the longest-running TV shows in American history, lasting 20 seasons until 1975. Blake appeared in 19 of those seasons, making her one of the most recognizable and enduring female figures in television history. Her portrayal of Kitty broke ground at a time when women on television were often relegated to secondary or domestic roles. Blake's Miss Kitty was strong, assertive, and self-reliant, running her own business and holding her own in a male-dominated world. Yet she also embodied deep emotional intelligence, loyalty, and compassion, especially toward Matt Dillon and the town's misfits, outcasts, and the wounded. Amanda brought nuance and depth to the role, earning respect from audiences and critics alike. Behind the scenes, Blake developed close relationships with her castmates, particularly James Arness, Matt Dillon. The two shared a warm, enduring friendship that lasted long after the show ended. Her work on Gunsmoke made Amanda Blake a household name and a role model for generations of women. Although acting was her public profession, Amanda Blake's private passion was animal welfare. A devoted animal lover throughout her life, she used her fame and resources to champion causes related to animal rights and conservation. After retiring from Gunsmoke, she became deeply involved in various animal protection organizations. In the 1970s, Blake joined the board of directors of the Performing Animal Welfare Society, PAWS, a groundbreaking group dedicated to the humane treatment of captive wildlife. She was especially concerned about the plight of big cats in captivity and helped fund the first African wildlife refuge in the United States. Her advocacy was not limited to mere donations. She personally rescued animals, traveled to speak on behalf of conservation causes, and pushed for legislative reforms to improve animal treatment. Her efforts earned her numerous awards, including the American Humane Association's Courage Award. She was also recognized by the National Wildlife Federation and honored with a special tribute from the Los Angeles Zoo. Amanda Blake's legacy as a humanitarian is just as enduring as her contribution to television history. Amanda Blake, best known for her role as the spirited and strong-willed saloon keeper, Miss Kitty Russell, on the long-running television series Gunsmoke, had a personal life that was as complex and eventful as any character she portrayed. Over the course of her life, Blake entered into 5 marriages, each reflecting a different chapter in her journey, filled with moments of hope, transition, and at times, sorrow. Her first marriage was to Jack Shea, which began in 1952. The union, however, was short-lived, ending in divorce just a year later in 1953. Details about Shea remain sparse, but this early relationship occurred before Blake had achieved widespread fame, likely during her time as a rising young actress still finding her place in Hollywood. This brief marriage may have been affected by the demanding nature of her budding career, which was beginning to pick up momentum in film and television. In 1954, Amanda Blake married Don Whitman, a relationship that initially seemed promising. The couple appeared to share a genuine affection, and the marriage lasted for 2 years before they divorced in 1956. This period in Blake's life coincided with the early days of her involvement with Gunsmoke, which premiered in 1955. It is possible that the pressures of working on a new television series, particularly one as groundbreaking and time-consuming as Gunsmoke, played a role in the dissolution of her marriage to Whitman. Their split came at a turning point for Blake professionally, as her portrayal of Miss Kitty quickly became a central and beloved fixture on the show. Following her divorce from Whitman, Blake found comfort and stability, not in a romantic relationship, but in the very place where she would ultimately leave her most enduring legacy, the set of Gunsmoke. Even on days when she was not scheduled to film, Blake often found herself returning to the saloon set. Far from simply being a workplace, the set became a second home for her. She developed a deep emotional attachment to the environment and to her fellow cast members, many of whom became like family. The camaraderie she shared with co-stars such as James Arness, Marshall Matt Dillon, Milburn Stone, Doc Adams, and Dennis Weaver, Chester Good, was real and enduring. Blake's bond with the saloon set was not just symbolic of her dedication to the role. It was a reflection of her finding a sense of belonging and consistency in the fast-paced and often unstable world of show business. Years later, in a surprising and rather sudden move, Amanda Blake married Mark Edward Spath in 1984. Spath was a well-known public figure in Austin, Texas, serving as a city councilman and carrying a degree of local celebrity in his own right. Their marriage attracted public interest due to Blake's fame and Spath's political stature. Unfortunately, their time together was tragically brief. Less than a year into their marriage in 1985, Spath died from complications related to AIDS. His death was not only a personal loss for Blake, but also brought national attention to the growing AIDS crisis, which was then only beginning to be widely acknowledged. At a time when stigma and misunderstanding surrounded the disease, Blake's association with Spath's death placed her in a difficult and painful spotlight. In the years following Spath's death, Blake became a quiet but determined advocate for AIDS awareness, a cause that would become increasingly important to her. Though she never publicly detailed all aspects of their relationship or his illness, those close to her noted how deeply the loss affected her. It was a turning point that spurred her involvement in various humanitarian efforts, including animal welfare and health-related causes. Blake's courage in facing the grief of Spath's death and the broader implications it carried during a tumultuous period in public health history added another layer to the complex portrait of an actress who was already admired for her talent, strength, and authenticity. Amanda Blake names the 6 gay actors she knows who died of AIDS in secret. Amanda Blake, best known for her long-running role as Miss Kitty on the classic television Western Gunsmoke, was more than just a beloved actress. She was also a vocal animal rights advocate and a figure who stood quietly but firmly in support of her LGBTQ friends during a time when the entertainment industry was steeped in silence and stigma. In her later years, Blake spoke openly about the devastating toll that the AIDS epidemic had taken on her circle of Hollywood acquaintances. In a rare and emotional conversation, she once named 6 gay actors she had known personally or professionally who had died of AIDS-related complications, often in secrecy and without public acknowledgement of the cause of death. Their stories and the veil of silence that often surrounded their final days reveal both the personal tragedy and the societal fear that marked that era. Rock Hudson. The most famous of the 6, Rock Hudson was a Hollywood heartthrob and matinee idol whose rugged good looks and leading man roles in films like Giant and Pillow Talk made him a household name. Hudson was the first major celebrity to publicly die of AIDS, passing away in 1985. While his diagnosis was eventually made public, it only became known shortly before his death, and the revelation sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and Middle America. Hudson's illness forced a national conversation about AIDS and homosexuality that had been largely avoided in mainstream media. Amanda Blake had worked in the same era as Hudson and recalled how, despite his fame, he suffered quietly, unable to publicly live his truth in a world that demanded heterosexual facades. His death became a turning point in public awareness, but Blake knew well that his private suffering was emblematic of so many others who couldn't speak out. Liberace, known for his flamboyant style, sparkling outfits, and show-stopping piano performances, Liberace was one of the most recognizable entertainers of the 20th century. Yet despite his theatrical persona and persistent rumors about his sexuality, Liberace never publicly acknowledged being gay. When he died in 1987, the official cause of death was initially listed as cardiac arrest, a fact many close to him, and in the press, questioned. It was only later confirmed that he had died of complications related to AIDS. Amanda Blake, who had been part of the entertainment world during Liberace's reign as a Las Vegas icon, lamented the fact that even someone so obviously expressive and vibrant had felt compelled to deny his truth to the end. She remembered him as a generous and warm-hearted performer who had helped countless people in private, even as he feared the consequences of living openly. Steven Stucker, a gifted comic actor best remembered for his role as the eccentric air traffic controller Johnny in The Airplane. Films, Steven Stucker brought an irreverent, flamboyant energy to his performances that made him unforgettable. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Stucker was one of the first actors to publicly disclose that he was living with AIDS, doing so in 1984, at a time when such honesty was virtually unheard of in Hollywood. Amanda Blake, who admired his courage, saw in Stucker a rare bravery that contrasted with the secrecy surrounding so many others. Tragically, his openness did not protect him from the illness that claimed his life in 1986 at just 38 years old. Blake often cited Stucker's honesty as a beacon for others, even if the industry failed to support him adequately. Paul Chenar. An actor of stage and screen, Paul Chenar was perhaps best known for his role as drug lord Alejandro Sosa in the 1983 film Scarface. A classically trained actor, Chenar brought intensity and intelligence to every performance. Behind the scenes, however, he lived a more private life, never publicly discussing his sexuality. Amanda Blake, who had encountered him in various theatrical and social circles, remembered Chenar as thoughtful and charismatic, someone who deserved much more recognition than he received. He died of AIDS-related complications in 1989, and though his death was mourned within the industry, it was not widely publicized or linked to AIDS at the time. Blake spoke of him with particular sadness, pointing out that his death was part of a pattern of quiet disappearances in the acting community, talents who slipped away without the world knowing the full weight of what had been lost. Timothy Patrick Murphy. A rising star in the early 1980s, Timothy Patrick Murphy appeared on soap operas such as Search for Tomorrow and had a prominent role on the nighttime series Dallas. He was young, attractive, and poised for a significant career in Hollywood. However, his life was cut tragically short when he died of AIDS-related complications in 1988 at the age of 29. Amanda Blake, who had met Murphy during charity events and industry gatherings, recalled how he radiated kindness and promise. His youth made his death especially difficult for her to accept. Murphy's story was, for Blake, a painful reminder of how AIDS was not just taking away legends, it was robbing a generation of its future. Leonard Freibest, known for his Academy Award-nominated role in Fiddler on the Roof as Motel the Tailor, Leonard Frey was a versatile character actor who also appeared in The Boys in the Band, a groundbreaking 1970 film centered on gay characters. Frey brought nuance and humor to his roles, and while he never publicly came out, his work was deeply resonant with LGBTQ themes. Amanda Blake, who had seen him perform both on stage and screen, believed that his artistry was shaped by his experiences as a gay man, even if those experiences had to be cloaked in discretion. Frey died of AIDS-related complications in 1988 at the age of 49. Blake viewed him as a tragic example of an artist whose full potential was never fully recognized due to the quiet pressures of the time. In naming these 6 men, Rock Hudson, Liberace, Steven Stucker, Paul Shenar, Timothy Patrick Murphy, and Leonard Frey, Amanda Blake was not merely recounting a list of tragedies. She was paying tribute to a generation of gay actors who lived in fear of exposure, whose careers were often shaped or stifled by the need for secrecy, and whose deaths went unspoken or mischaracterized in obituaries and tributes. Blake's own death from AIDS-related complications in 1989 brought irony and poignancy to her reflections. Although she did not contract the illness through the same means, her experience with the disease gave her a deeper understanding of the pain and isolation that accompanied it, particularly for those who had to bear the additional burden of hiding who they were. Her words serve as a quiet act of remembrance, an acknowledgement of lives that burned brightly, but too briefly, in the shadows of Hollywood. In 1977, Amanda Blake, best known for her long-running role as Miss Kitty Russell on the iconic television Western Gunsmoke, faced a deeply personal health crisis that would change the course of her life. A heavy cigarette smoker for many years, Blake was diagnosed with oral cancer, a disease that was especially alarming considering her prominent public image and ongoing work in the entertainment industry. The diagnosis came as a serious wake-up call, not just to Blake, but to many of her fans who admired her vibrant presence on screen. Determined to confront the illness head-on, she underwent surgery that successfully removed the cancer. The experience left an indelible mark on her, inspiring her to take a proactive role in raising awareness about the dangers of smoking and the importance of early detection and treatment. Following her recovery, Blake redirected her energy and fame toward advocacy, becoming a passionate supporter of the American Cancer Society. She traveled extensively across the United States, participating in numerous fundraising events and speaking engagements. Her presence at these events helped draw media attention and attract larger audiences, bringing much-needed visibility to the cause. Blake spoke openly about her battle with cancer, courageously sharing the details of her illness and recovery, in hopes that her story would serve as a cautionary tale and a source of inspiration to others. Her work with the American Cancer Society was not merely symbolic. She was deeply involved in their outreach programs, lending her name and time to support research funding and education campaigns. In recognition of her tireless efforts and the bravery she displayed in both confronting her illness and using her platform to help others, Amanda Blake was honored in 1984 with the American Cancer Society's annual Courage Award. This prestigious accolade is reserved for individuals who demonstrate extraordinary strength in the face of serious illness and use their experiences to foster greater awareness and support for cancer-related causes. The award presentation was a moment of national attention, made even more significant by the fact that it was presented by then-President Ronald Reagan. The event symbolized not only Blake's personal triumph, but also the growing alliance between celebrities and public health organizations in promoting crucial health messages. Tragically, Amanda Blake's life came to a premature end on August 16, 1989, when she passed away at Mercy General Hospital in Sacramento, California, at the age of 60. Initially, her death was publicly attributed to complications related to throat cancer. A plausible cause considering her previous battle with oral cancer and her history of smoking. However, in a surprising and ultimately historic disclosure, her physician, Dr. Lou Nishimura, later revealed that the true cause of death was AIDS-related complications, specifically AIDS-related hepatitis. This announcement shocked the public and the entertainment industry, as AIDS was still a heavily stigmatized and poorly understood illness at the time. The revelation not only recontextualized her final years, but also opened up difficult conversations about the nature of privacy, illness, and public perception. The source of Amanda Blake's AIDS infection remains unclear, and speculation has persisted for years. Blake's close friends and associates were quick to defend her reputation, insisting that she was neither a drug user nor sexually promiscuous, two common and often unfairly generalized associations with AIDS during the 1980s. Many believe that she may have contracted the disease from her fifth husband, Mark Spath, a former Austin City councilman, who had died in 1985 of complications, believed to be AIDS-related pneumonia. Though their marriage had been relatively brief, having occurred shortly before Spath's illness became apparent, it is considered the most likely avenue of transmission. Nonetheless, the lack of definitive answers and the social stigma surrounding AIDS at the time meant that much of the discourse around Blake's death remained clouded in speculation, despite the insistence of those close to her that she lived a life of integrity and discretion.